So what can you actually invest in? At the Werthstein Institute, we do detailed research into major themes linked to developments in the world around us. These are themes you can actually invest in. We call them zeitgeists. We're going to discuss two zeitgeists and then vote on which is better. Stefan, please begin with the future of the car.
Thanks, Giles. Driverless cars, shared cars, electric cars, and connected cars. This is the future of the car. And it's a zeitgeist, a major investment theme for the next decade. It's not just a technological revolution, it's also a social revolution. Fewer young people are learning to drive today than 10 years ago. Uber has swept the world. Even the most committed drivers want to talk on the phone or surf in the net when they're in traffic. And everyone wants less pollution. For investors, the potential is massive. McKinsey says that the global market for connected cars will grow from $30 billion last year to 170 billion by 2020. That's 40% average growth rate every year. There are four key technologies: control systems for driverless cars, digital mapping, electric propulsion, and car sharing. For the first three technologies, you can invest in smaller specialist companies. In addition, you can invest via some of the big famous names like BMW and Ford, which are leaders in these technologies. The average price for the companies we identified for the zeitgeist are well below their earlier peak. That suggests that there's a scope for price to rise again. So to summarize, cars are going to change radically in the future. There's tremendous growth potential of 40% per year, and it's a zeitgeist you can invest in.
Stefan, that's very kind. That's a very interesting theme indeed, very exciting. But let's try and challenge it a bit with another idea. Christine, tell us about biotech.
Biotechnology investments are a strategic sweet spot. On the one hand, they're no longer in the early stages. On the other hand, they still have enormous growth potential. That's why they're a zeitgeist. Biotechnology uses living organisms to develop and make products. It's a wide area. Our main focus is its application to pharmaceuticals. Modern biotech began to take off in the 1960s, and since then scientific discoveries have spread from the universities to the commercial world, and the science is amazing. For example, an old medicine like aspirin contains 21 atoms. New ones could contain 25,000. 25,000. A large proportion of the current research is concentrated on treatments for cancer. Another key area is tackling dementia, although that's mainly at an earlier stage. Alongside these, some medical uses of marijuana are well into development. But the structure has changed. 2 or 3 decades ago, most development of new drugs took place in big pharma companies. Today, earlier development often takes place in smaller companies. These begin as unlisted startups, then list on exchanges like NASDAQ. Some are bought by big pharma, others raise sufficient capital to grow into giants in their own right. And performance has been strong. The biotech industry has shown impressive revenue growth in the past, and it seems likely to continue to grow rapidly. After all, it's only natural that there's enormous demand for better treatments. And this is an efficient sector, with twice the success rate in clinical trials compared to old cell medicines. But it's also a volatile sector, with prices last year roughly doubling and then falling back since. But I like to view this as an example of the cycle, often seen in new technologies, whether it's 19th century railways through to 21st century solar energy and .com. Investors get very excited, then there's a bubble bursts, prices fall to more sensible levels, and then from there they show less dramatic but reasonably well-sustained growth over many years. And it looks likely that biotech stocks are following this pattern, and that's why this is a zeitgeist.
Well, thank you, Christine. Thank you both. I mean, it's very fascinating the way both of these have shown this same sort of pattern of a bit of overhype and then coming back down a bit. But now let's have an open discussion for a few minutes and then vote. But let's hand it over to Valerie, who's listened now to both of these. What's your feeling about these, Valerie?
Well, at this point, I really like the biotechs. I think what I feel from this sector is that the whole business model has matured, and the big pharma has changed, and they have changed their way of, taking over this whole process. Probably knowing how to use and introduce new developments, and leaving those new small tech, high tech companies taking on the risk into the earlier stage of research. So this makes a very sweet and nice combination, and a very dynamic one. And it's true, the sector has performed, but I think, the big progress are in front of us. And not only, you mentioned cancer, also chronic disease is a big issue. And there is a growing world, middle-class people accessing healthcare and who want to have this kind of medicines.
That's right.
So that's true. There is a bumpy road also because of prices, regulation. We've seen again the political background being part of that story, but I think they know how to cope with it.
I mean, Stefan, can I throw a slightly naughty question at you? I think we've heard from both Christine and Valerie how biotech, it has come a long way. Surely the future of the car theme, it's going there, but isn't it still very early? I mean, we had this horrible tragedy with Tesla with a car that somebody was killed in. I mean, what's your feeling?
You are right regarding this crash, but if you look in the statistics, I think they had 150 million kilometers or something like this, and then we have the first crash, someone died. If you look on car with drivers, it's so the crashes are more often. So I think that's not really an argument, and that's just one point there.
But there's a sort of mental thing that you have to get over there, isn't there?
I
Not being in control.
Yeah,
that would be something I'd personally find a little strange.
I agree with you, because I always tell people, if they say I cannot go to Paris because of terrorism, I think it's more dangerous to sit into the car in the morning.
Indeed, yes.
If you go. You are right in this point, but I made a lot of money in biotech tech stocks in the 90s already. So for me, I did it already. But I think I'm not against the biotech. I like both things. But for me, the car revolution is more the exploring industry where more potential is in. It's not so mature, so the upside potential in my mind is higher. But I also like the biotech story. You are fully right with that.
And I think the cars is it's a longer term story. It's going to take quite a long while to get the acceptance, whereas in biotech we're all quite comfy with generally.
I think one of the issue there is the business model, and I wouldn't know where to go because I don't know who's going to be the winner of that race between, let's say the car brains or the car body. Who's going to take over? Yeah. And yes, also the autonomy and safety feature is what people want at first, and that's why it makes such a big fuss when there's an accident.
But the big car manufacturers now are all struggling because of the various scandals they've had to go to and the various recalls we've seen. Most recent was Toyota, wasn't it?
But they're not really struggling. That's the interesting point, that Volkswagen is still selling a lot of cars. So I think that's not really a point. But you are right.
But they're facing a big lawsuit.
And it's difficult to know who is the winner. And I think in this times, you have to invest in a bigger amount of stocks to have the one what is the winner, because the winner will not double, it will go 10 times higher, and then it's acceptable that one or two are losing in the end. The car industry in the 20s in the US, they had more than 100 car makers there, and it survived 3 in the end.
Even in the UK.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, look, I think this really, it does show the contrast between the two. And I think, in a sense, with biotech, they've kind of worked out roughly the system. You begin with these startups, and then they either kind of grow and grow and grow, or they often get sold out to the big pharma. Whereas I think with the whole cars theme, there isn't quite that sort of logical progression. I mean, maybe some little ones, but...
But there's one point. I'm agreeing with the investor legend Warren Buffett, who says, invest just in things you understand. And cars, I understand. I'm using it. I see what a Tesla is. I know how long the batteries are working or not. Biotech is difficult because I'm not an expert. I don't know who is doing the best medicine in the future. And also there, I prefer to buy a broader range of companies and not just one.
I would agree there.
All right, well, I think these are very interesting contrasting themes, and now we need to bring it to a conclusion. So I'm going to ask the Werthstein Institute members to vote. This time around, I'm going to ask the panel for a yellow tick if they prefer the cars, and for a blue tick if they prefer biotech. And the zeitgeist with the most ticks is going to win. If it comes out at 2-2, then as chair, I will have the casting vote. Valerie, would you like to vote first?
I'm ready. I'm choosing biotech. As I explained, I think the business model is there to provide some good revenues, and we have good companies, large panel and diversified basket just to choose the right ones.
Thank you. Stefan.
So I decide for the cars. Perhaps I take the higher risk, but I think I also have the higher and bigger chances because these new technologies at the beginning and not in the middle of that time, and the growth potential is enormously and bigger than in biotech.
Thank you. Christine.
So I think the cars are much more of a long-term investment. So like Valerie, I'm going for the biotech because I think that's more a now investment.
So now we've got 2 for biotech, 1 for cars. If I go for cars, then my casting vote would actually push cars up. But if I go for biotech, biotech will have it. So I'm going to go for biotech. I think that is the one that offers the better risk reward here. I actually like the cars. It was a difficult decision, Stefan, and thanks for making a good case. But I think on balance, biotech is where it's at this time. So that brings our very first show to an end. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Christine. The biotech zeitgeist is now ready for investment. And next month in August, we'll be debating 2 brand new zeitgeists. See you then.